Hello and welcome back once again to After the Credits. So, as I said in the previous video for It, I'm going to try and keep these shorter now. Again, these next couple films I just don't really have a lot to say about, so what's the point in dragging them on? Just give you guys my thoughts and a quick summary of it and a rating and move on. So today we're talking about Home Again, starring the lovely Reese Witherspoon, who never seems to age. I don't know how old she actually is now, but she still looks exactly the same as when she was doing Legally Blonde like 30 years ago or whatever it was. Actually, I was a teenager when that came out, so... Actually, what year did that come out? I don't know. Anyway, what is Home Again about? Home Again is about a woman who is separated from her husband and moves back home to her father's house, who had passed away. Her father was kind of a big deal in the film industry from back in the day. Made a lot of memorable films that people still talk about, blah, blah, blah. She moves back home just trying to have a fresh start for her life, her kids. She's still married to her husband, but they're legally separated, and he lives in another state because he's a big record producer. And throughout the course of the film, she asks him a couple times to, move there and be with them, and maybe they can reconcile. And he just keeps putting it off, and then finally she just gets to the point where she's kind of over it. The other part of the story is she's out with her friends at a bar one night, and she meets this guy at the bar who's trying to pick up on her. And she ends up kind of hanging out. Her friends and his friends all hang out for the night, and just kind of have this big blowout, which ends up with everyone back at her house, just kind of hanging out, drinking, doing whatever. And it gets to the point where everyone starts to pass out, and her and the guy are going to go to bed together. Except that he ends up getting sick, and then by the time everything's done, you find out they never slept together. She just kind of let him stay the night in her bed. She slept on a chair that was in the room. And the next morning, everyone's getting ready to leave, and her mother stops by and starts talking to the guys. And one of the guys recognizes her mother being the star of one of her father's films, and that's when another one realizes, who she actually is, that she's the daughter of this amazing film director. And the thing is, they're all aspiring actors, directors, writers, and everything themselves. They made a short film, they had it at a film festival, and it got picked up by a studio for development. And they're all trying to still do this, live their dream of being this three-person team, but at the same time they're each getting other job offers. Like, one gets another acting gig for a couple commercials, one gets a writer's gig on like a sitcom or something, but he's still able to work on that while he's working on their movie. But then the main guy, who was the one who's going to sleep with Reese Witherspoon, he doesn't want the group to kind of break up because he feels like if they start taking on other jobs, they're going to stop focusing on their film and it'll all just fall apart, and that's what he's mostly afraid of. So his friends are kind of keeping it all a secret from him. But basically what it boils down to is Reese Witherspoon's mother invites them to stay in the pool house because they don't have a place to live. They just got kicked out of their apartment. And they seem to be having a positive influence just from the 2 days of being, or the 1.5 day of being there, on Reese Witherspoon herself, on her kids, and so on and so forth. And her mother thinks it'd be good to have them around for a little bit to help out. So they move into the guest house, and they're kind of living there. And it just kind of carries on from there, where they become a big part of her life. She becomes a big part of theirs. They have a falling out at one point to where they kind of leave and don't talk to each other for a while. And then everything kind of blows up from there. And then there's the reconciliation where everyone gets back together, realizes they all missed each other, and it just kind of comes back together. But there are some changes, so it's that whole growing and changing but still remaining friends type of thing that goes on in the movie. But I don't want to give much more detail than that. I actually ended up liking this movie a lot more than I thought I would. When it first came out, I had no interest in seeing it. Then I caught a couple minutes of it while I was at work one day. I was like, that looks like it could be interesting, but I don't know if I want to watch it for review. It might be something I watch later on down the road, just to see what it was about. And then around the time that I was going to go watch something else, I was like, well, this is playing first, let me go ahead and watch this. So I went and watched it and ended up enjoying it, probably about what I thought I was going to based on the little bit that I saw of it. But at the same time, had I hesitated, I might not have enjoyed it as much because time would have passed and I would have got hesitant to watch it, and it kind of would just faded into the background at some point. But I'm kind of glad I watched it. If you're any form of an inspiring filmmaker or student of film, it doesn't really teach a whole lot, but just the aspect of these people's lives is a little interesting from that aspect. So if you're into that kind of stuff, you might enjoy it. Overall, it's just a fun, somewhat family-friendly film. And, if you're into just the lighthearted, dramatic comedy type of movies, you'll probably enjoy it. So what would I give as far as a star rating? I'd probably give this one a solid 3.5. Not quite a 4, because like I said, it was a movie I almost didn't go see, but other than I watched a couple minutes of it while I was at work that day. The one story in it kind of intrigued me enough to go watch the rest of it, and the way it all tied together worked. So yeah, it doesn't quite deserve a 4, but I'm still glad I watched it, and I'd still recommend it if you like those types of films. So it gets a 3.5 for me. So that's it for this episode. Again, as always, thank you guys for watching. Remember to like, comment, subscribe, share the video. The links are down in the description. Click the bell next to the subscribe button so you get notifications every time I post new content. And until next time, we'll see you after the credits.